Do you feel like your body's got to change before you like it? Hi there, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Saira, the show where I answer your questions about mental health, personal growth, and relationships. Today's question comes from Rita. Rita says, this is actually a personal question specifically for me about my journey. So a little bit different than usual, not as much about as a theory, about my own personal life. So Rita says, how were you able to shed the physical weight off of you? Did you like yourself when you were a heavier frame? I struggle with liking myself with the extra weight, but I know if I can't love myself, how can I expect anyone else to? So this is actually a question about my journey with weight loss. And some people may not know, I think by now most people know, but you might not know that I used to be significantly heavier, almost 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And I lived at that weight for probably at least 15, like a big chunk of my adult life. I was at this heavier weight. And I lost the weight. And then I gained it back. And then I lost it. And then I gained it back. And then I lost it. And then I gained it back. And I was doing this back and forth weight thing for many, many years until I found a shift in my thinking, and until I actually started being honest about my food addiction. And so when I got honest about my food addiction on January 4th, 2016, the world changed for me. And so I want to say that loss and gain cycle. So there's actually 3 things I want to talk about with this. And thank you for asking me about my story. I'm really touched that you want to know my perspective. But I also want to say this is just one person's perspective. Lots of people have great information out there about weight loss and body image and self-celebration. And that's not really my area of research or expertise, but I can talk to you about my personal story. Absolutely. So 3 things that I want to talk to you about. One is that the yo-yo, the loss and gain. Second is about working with what you got. And then the third is about what really matters. Okay. So the first one is that loss and gain cycle, right? Losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. And there's a couple of pictures here that I have of what I looked like before and what I looked like after. And you've probably seen pictures like this of other people, right? Where they're like, oh, look, and it's really disheartening when you go through that process and then you gain the weight back. So disheartening. The question was about how did you like yourself in a heavier frame? And I remember posting one of these pictures, this one in particular, in my support group, where many of us who have been through this program that I'm part of and food addiction program, we posted before and after pictures. And I was so critical. Like looking back, I was so critical on that heavier me, but my group reminded me that was still me, right? That was still me. Same heart, same mind, same spirit, just in a bigger body. And so that gain and loss, what it did is it messed me up as far as my identity. Like, am I a fat girl? Am I a skinny girl? Like, what am I? It was just a yo-yoing all the time. And then so much judgment, right? When I was heavier, I was judging thin people. When I was thin, I was judging heavier people. And it was just like this crazy making in my mind. And that was because I couldn't accept myself as I was. I remember the moment that I kind of like, before I lost the weight the first time, I kind of like really just accepted that, either this last thing is going to work or I'm just going to accept that this is my body and this is how we're going to roll for the rest of my life. And it was such a heartbreaking moment of realization, right? To say like, I just can't try one more thing. And so I actually I got rid of all my little skinny clothes and I started buying clothing that actually fit me properly at the bigger size. And I started to own it, right? I started to own this bigger body. And there's so much complexity around this because I know there's a whole movement of like body positive, but then there's also like the realistic health issues that come from being obese. So there was all of that I was but I just let all of that go. And I said, you know what, this is my body. I'm just going to accept this body for what it is. And that kind of mental shift took some of the judgment out of the conversation internally. And so then when I found a program and I did the program and I lost the weight, it was like, oh, okay, but I liked myself then and I'm liking myself now with the less weight. That led to a period of about, let's see, about probably 3 years of back and forth, gaining and losing. I think I did the math and I've gained and lost about 400 pounds in my life. That's a lot of weight, on and off, on and off. So during that gaining and losing, I wasn't happy with my body, whether I was slim or whether I was not slim. It was like a struggle and a fight, and it was hard. And the thing that helped me get out of that loss and gain cycle, looking back, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I think one of the things that really helped me was this question that I had to ask myself when I started this food addiction program, which is, what is the weight letting me do or not do? What is this weight letting me do or not do? And so for me, when I did some soul searching about this, I did some journaling, I talked to some friends in the group about it. One of the things it was letting me do is actually hide, kind of stay in the background, right? Because no one notices the fat girl. I was just a sidekick in the background. So it was helping me to like kind of stay out of the spotlight, kind of hide. That was one thing. Another thing that it was helping me to do was feel strong because I had such a big body, right? So I didn't feel like somebody could just like kidnap me into their car and whatever, right? Like I actually felt like, oh, I can like hold my own. I'm strong. I'm heavy. I'm not going to be pushed around, right? Which was funny because I was a people pleaser. So I was getting pushed around in a different way. But there was this thing about strength in the weight and the bigness. So I mean, it was kind of nice to have to not be in the spotlight, and it was nice to feel strong. And so some of the reasons that we unconsciously hold the weight could be, anything. That's what it was for me. So if you're going through that, I would ask yourself like, what is this weight allowing me to do or not do? One of the things it was allowing me not to do was become active, right? Because I was so heavy, my body hurt so much when I would try to walk or forget run, I never ran, but like walk or climb stairs or like so many things that were just hard for me, and having a big body made it harder. And so I just stopped doing it. So it gave me a really good excuse not to be active. Now, I think back and I think, well, that's weird, right? Because now being active is just part of my identity. But at the time, it was embarrassing for me to go to the gym and see all these little like svelte bodies and I'm like huffing and puffing, and it was just, so I didn't go. I stopped. I didn't do it. The place that I found that I turned the corner on that was actually Zumba. Zumba is like this dance aerobics thing. You might have heard about it. And that was fun because now I was having some fun. I was moving, I was dancing, and there was all kinds of bodies in that class, and it was fun and it was lighthearted. And so I got moving again through that. And that actually moves us. So the first thing is that loss and gain cycle. The second is working with what you got, right? So when I started Zumba classes, like, okay, I'm going to work with what I've got. I don't like being active. I don't like going to the gym. But I do like dancing. I love to dance. So maybe I can use that as my movement, right? So working with what I got, not trying to force myself to become a swimmer because it's not me. I've never done that. I've never been interested in that. And then it was neat because I started with Zumba, I got on this program, and then my body started transforming and people were noticing and I was noticing. And as my body started transforming, I started trying some new things like, what would it be like to take one of these, like, what are they called? That like obstacle course class, like parkour, I don't know what they're called, but you like go to one thing and then you lift weights and then you jumping jacks. And like I did one of those and I was like, oh, this is hard, but my body can now do this, right? I started spin class. Never thought I'd ever do something like that, but I know that I used to love riding a bike as a kid. So I was like, maybe spin. So as the weight started melting off, I could try these different things now. So I was working with what I got. I stopped fighting the weight and started surrendering to, okay, this is my body and let's see. Now, that was happening at the same time as I was dealing with my food addiction. So there was some external changes that were happening, which were very motivating, but it was also kind of that internal shift. What do I have to work with? Work with what I've got. Finally, the last thing I want to talk to you about. So just a few months ago, I was getting, body obsessed again, like, oh, I don't know, this arm, maybe I need to get more toned. And you know how we do that stupid thing, right? We're like, oh, summer's coming. And I got a skiing injury. And I couldn't walk. and I couldn't sit and I couldn't lie down, and it was really painful. It wasn't anything like I didn't break anything. It was a natural healing process. But when I experienced that, I realized, oh, I've been focusing on the wrong things. I've been focusing on how my body looks and not what my body can do for me. And so that's been a real shift over the last few months for me, is just gratitude for all the things my body can do for me. It can breathe. My heart is just pumping blood without any instruction, right? My legs are able to get me up and get me somewhere. And then like these things, when I hurt my tailbone, it was like, oh, there's more to the body than just how it looks, right? But I think we live in a culture that's so much about how we look and how the body looks that it's easy to think like it's just about the aesthetic. It's not. And you know, I know I'm biased, right? I'm an able-bodied person, and so I have my biases. And I think what's normal for me is not actually normal or necessary for anybody else. But that understanding, that eye-opening moment of, oh, would I rather be heavy or not be able to walk it? Like it put things in perspective, you know, when you can't walk suddenly. So those are my thoughts about how I was able to shed the physical weight off. So the way that I did it was I actually joined a program that was around food addiction. It's called Bright Line Eating. Transformational, changed my life. 6 years clean and sober from all of my addictive foods, and maintained my weight. So that's what I did. Did I like myself when I was heavier? No, for most of the time. And then I started to like myself as I started to explore some of those unconscious pieces. And yeah, struggling with liking yourself at the extra weight, I think that's a normal thing. But I also think that if you get curious about it, you might find some neat answers. So those are my thoughts for that question. Hopefully that was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye.